Yes, we are in that time of the year when all of us globally, women, men, everyone, joins the UN system to observe the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. This year, we're orange in the world as always, within the theme titled Fund, Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. So it's a collective responsibility out there. What we intend to do on Bridges today is to let's understand what we really mean with when we say gender-based violence. What qualifies as a gender-based violence. And moving away from there, and it's usual with this program, we're trying to build a bridge. How do we contain this menace? How do we contain what has been now ascribed as pandemic within a pandemic? We'll get there. I'm not alone today as I welcome you all to Bridges. I'm here with women activists who themselves are involved because they are speaking out for women that have been so affected, and because they do see it and they're ready to share with us those experiences that should ensure us to finally eliminate, eradicate, respond, prevent gender-based violence. First on the list of wonderful women that I have on the program today, and we're using technology, by the way. You can see that this is not our set. Thank God for technology. In spite of the pandemic, we can still speak to each other. First is Dr. Amina Doraye. Dr. Amina has been on this program before, so I'm excited to bring her on again. And she is the country representative of Pathfinder International, and they are very involved in cases that we are trying to build a bridge to contain today. Also with us, we have Chidelu, who is going to be using the lens of younger women to speak to this issue. And at some point, we'll have the Action Aid country representative join us to further throw more light as we attempt to orange the world. I hope you're oranging your world out there. So quickly, I'll go to Dr. Amina, and it's so good to see you. You're all oranged up as it is.
Thank you. Yeah. Good to see you.
Right. So first, let's understand, what is gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. And I'm really happy to be back on Bridges, my favorite show always on NTA. So, this is a very dear topic to me, and obviously to all of us that are on this call and on this show today. So it's good to understand what we're talking about, as we all know, so that we will know how to even deal with the issues and the consequences of gender-based violence, for instance. So gender-based violence is actually any violence or force inflicted on an individual because of their gender. And gender-based violence, sometimes we refer mostly to women and girls that are being affected by gender-based violence, but it's good to know that any gender, male or female, can be affected by gender-based violence. Can be a victim or a survivor per se for gender-based violence. And there are many types of gender-based violence. Many people really know the common ones, which is rape, but it's good to really realize that gender-based violence is a whole spectrum. And it goes from verbal abuse, for instance, someone talking to you in a certain way or in a harassment way as a result of your gender. It could also be a sexual harassment, and that could be in any way, either in the workplace or at home and all. And we can have domestic violence too, as a result of maybe a spouse beating his, wife or girlfriend or all. It is also a domestic violence, or even the father in any case. So it could be that. And we also have, of course, intimate partner violence. We have sexual violence. That's where rape comes into also. It could also be anything from violence in the workplace to violence at home to even in the streets. So gender-based violence is a huge spectrum. And really, the most important thing that I think I would want to say is that it is deeply rooted, in gender inequality. So once there's a gender inequality dynamics, you would see that gender-based violence is quite prevalent in any society. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We needed that background as we move forward. Before I go to Chinelu, I would quickly like to read verbatim from the United Nations Secretary General's campaign on to end violence against women, and I read on quote. As the world retreated inside homes due to the lockdown measures introduced to curb the COVID-19 pandemic, reports showed that an alarming increase in the already existing pandemic of violence against women. End of quote from the United Nations Secretary General's campaign. Now, I'll move to another thing that I got just before we started this program. It says well over 700 cases were reported in the first 2.5 months of the lockdown. 700 cases were reported, and it is asserted that for every reported case, there are, between 2 to 3 more unreported or quelled cases, particularly if it happens within the family setting. So it's the pandemic, in the pandemic, that we are dealing with when we speak to gender-based violence. So I'll go to you, Chinelu, and I hope that you will use your youth lens or younger woman lens to speak to us on the feelings out there, especially as we look at people who have been so inflicted and are suffering within, what we'll call a scar within. Chinelu, you have the floor.
If I want to talk about the effects, for me, I will start looking at it the way it affects them in different areas. Like if you look at the area of health, we know a lot of women who go through different forms of abuse suffer health risk. When you talk about physical abuse, for example, women go through different levels of trauma when they go through physical abuse. Women go through different levels of mental stress. So you are also looking at issues of mental health. When you also talk about issues of abuse, women go through different levels of issues. And this is actually a period for us to start looking at how to hold people accountable to ensure that women and girls actually stay safe and that they are free from violence. And how do we do that? We need to start reflecting on how well we have done as a society in providing different services for these women who suffer this level of abuse and the impact. For example, if you look at our health sector, how well have we done in providing adequate services for women who suffer abuse? Already, like you mentioned, we are suffering pandemic inside pandemic because there's already existing pandemic of violence against women and girls. Now that the COVID is here, we are seeing the spike and the increase in the rate of GBV across the nation. And so if you look at what already is in place in terms of access to service, look at the health sector. Most times when women are abused, they are the ones suffering the trauma, and they are also the ones bearing the burden of the financial burden of accessing services for themselves. And even when they have the money, for some of them, when they get to hospitals, the services are not available. If you also look at access to justice too, women are also complaining because most times when they go through this abuse and they actually want to pursue justice, most of them they don't move forward just because of all the processes involved in trying to access services. Most of them, they will come out, they report, you are trying to help them to get services from courts. They keep adjourning cases. They are there coming out every day, spending from their pockets, going to court, and court keeps, trying to, what is it called? Adjourn their cases. And over time, you will see them saying, adjourn the cases. And over time, you will see them saying, oh, I don't want to move further. And so those kind of issues here and there don't encourage women to come out to talk about these issues. We always say women should be encouraged to speak out. There is need for them to speak out. There is need for them. And how do we encourage them to speak out? It's when they see that these services are available for them to access. The services are not available. When they speak out too, they also face the stigma and the discrimination that comes from people in the society. And beyond that, even when they speak out, we do not have those services. We do not have things in place for them to access. In our system, there are no structures. For example, if you look at places where we have the sexual assault and referral centers, women have done well. Civil society organizations who work with women that suffer abuse, they've done well in trying to provide services because of the existence of sexual assault referral centers in those areas. But if you look at the nation in general, you will see that a lot of states sexual assault and referral centers. And so how do we respond to those kind of cases? Because we know that the sexual assault referral centers is the place where a young person can go to and feel safe to be able to access different levels of services, be it the health, be it the legal, be it the psychosocial counseling, be it whatever. And they will also be able to provide reports for them that will be tendered in courts. But we really do not have those services in place. The few states that have it, we can see that they've gone so far in providing services to women. And so when we talk about these issues, we talk about the effects, and we also talk about the absence of the system that could also provide services for these women in our society.
Thank you, Chinelu. See, I can see emotions pouring out here, and that's why we would now concentrate on building a solid bridge that would take us from this pandemic and take us to the healing process. Well, I'm sad to hear that in terms of services, it's still limited where you can access it, and living again with stigma, and I think it brings back the fact that we are dealing with scar within. So I'll come back to you, Dr. Amina. What exactly should we be doing in terms of, as a country, as a people, and even individuals should be doing to bring some measure of succor to people, to children, usually the girl child? I just want us to bring all this together as I give the floor to Dr. Amina.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also really, I like the way Chinelo brought out all the issues, and maybe later on in the discussion, we can talk more about the sexual assault referral centers as well, because, you know, Pathfinder International worked to support 10 of them in 9 states. There is a lot that we need to do to curb or to prevent gender-based violence in our community. And let me even start with the theme of this year's campaign. And I really love the theme because it is all-encompassing. Let me start with fund. You know, there is nothing that can be done, as Shinole said, to curb or to prevent or even eradicate gender-based violence. That is what our aim should be, to ensure that there's zero tolerance for gender-based violence. So if we do not fund, you know, any response, for instance, we're sure that the sexual assault referral centers that are supposed to be available in every state governments, when they fund them, they fund the training of those health workers. And it's not only health workers, as she said, the referral centers also include judicial systems and also counseling, psychosocial counseling. So this is a safe space which needs to have, you know, all the funds and resources they require to set it up very well, so that women and girls and even men, you know, that have been violated can have a space to come. And let's not forget that most of the time, it is family members and close associates that usually are the perpetrators. So that means that the individual or the survivor needs to come out of, you know, their own environment. And that means that they need to be in a place where they can be taken care of before any action is being taken against the individual, the perpetrator, that funding. And then the second thing about responding is also really in line with the funding. So in terms of responding, if there's any survivor or any victim that has gone through gender-based violence, there needs to be deliberate action to ensure that, one, people are aware of where to go. So we should be able to put it out there through different platforms, the media. And I like what you're doing now, because the media is very, very critical. So the media, social media, the traditional media, you know, radio and all, any means, even in schools, let's try to ensure that people know where to go to and what to do at the immediate aftermath of gender-based violence. So responding, the health response, the counseling, the medical and forensic services, for instance. So So, the third part of the theme, which is prevention, is very, very critical. We shouldn't wait for something to happen before we respond to it. And in that vein, because gender-based violence is rooted in gender inequality, we need to prevent gender-based violence from the community level, from the society level. Any social norm that perpetuates gender-based violence or gender inequality should be addressed from the barest minimum of the family structure, from the education structure. So in the schools, even from primary schools, universities, I know they're trying with civic education, but we need to be more serious about it to be sure that children from a very young age understand that human beings are equal, irrespective of being males or females, and they need to be treated with dignity. They need to be treated with respect. So if we want to prevent gender-based violence, we have to start from the family level, from the school level, and at a very young age.
Thank you very much. It's so, and all these that you've mentioned are doable within the context of who we are as a people, and I think we must be deliberate in the fight against gender-based violence. Well, our time is ticking, and it's ticking very fast. Now, Chinelu, you've been quiet and nodding. Let's hear from you. What are your final lines? What are we to do concretely and deliberately to stop, like said, to stop? We should aim at stopping, not just reducing. I think we should eliminate, eradicate, and it shouldn't happen at all. How can we get to this promised land? Is it possible?
We need to start talking to people on the appropriate behavior, trying to make them understand, recognize and respect that women's rights are human rights. By the time we start changing people's perception about what it means to be a woman, that being a woman is being like a woman is also should be regarded as a human being first. Trying to teach our boys what positive masculinity is, it's also important. When I was working with local women, there was a project actually that we implemented when I was still working with my organization. And we tried to set up a 20-member committee to be able to respond to issues of violence against women and girls in their community. In trying to select those members, we tried to get at least 10 men to 10 women. It was actually difficult for us to get up to 10 women who could be represented in such committees. Why? Because we couldn't get women who were educated enough from those committees to join. Just like she said, lack of access to education is it has a very huge long-term negative impact on women and girls. And so if we need to stop GBV, we need to start putting our girls in school and putting structures in place for them to actually remain in school. Because it's one thing to enroll them in school, it's another thing for them to feel safe to be in those schools. We need to start sensitizing people on why it is important for us to respect women and girls in our society. Because I realized that from the trainings I've conducted in those local communities, most of the men, they actually do, and even the women themselves who actually go through this abuse don't even recognize most times that what they are going through is abuse. And so if you don't know that you are being abused, how would you be able to report? So it's important for us to send them to school to learn at least, and also gather the skills for them to also learn livelihoods.
Chinelu, thank you very much. We could just go on, but I saw just joining us now is NLB of Action Aid, the country rep. Ene, are you there? Well, this is your field, and this is what you do, like every day. So we're speaking to the 16-day activism, gender-based violence, and working within the theme, speaking within the theme, and being able to attempting to build a bridge that will contain and finally nail the coffin of gender-based violence. Let's hear from your perspective.
Action Aid Nigeria, we've been doing a lot of work around with women-led organizations, with a number of women. We have come of age that I will say that this year's theme is centered around, of course, it's centered on gender-based violence. The violence against women and girls that we are looking at. We also have to draw how we use the resources that are available. Funding, connecting connecting with the victims. Because we look a lot about getting punishment for those who have caused, the perpetrators, but the victims. These are areas that many people are not concentrating. A lot of people are not moving on. A lot of girls, a lot of women, after, because you look at it in several ways. One of the ways is to look at the issues of rape. I know many girls who are unable to move on. In Nigeria, we do not have a lot of, enough psychosocial support. We do not have people. Who are the people that you go to that you can onboarding yourself? Many of the girls, with interactions with them, a lot of them are not able to speak to their mothers. They are not able to talk to their parents. They have to find a safe ground. And that is why the introduction of, safe houses or safe platforms, it's very, very important. But who are the trustworthy ones that these girls, how can we open up platforms or open up initiatives that people can engage in? And that is why we're working with more than 100, I think in the last count, almost 167 organizations that we're working with to ensure that these women, one is capacity building for even our leaders who are training these young girls or who are reaching out to the girls or to the women. In so many ways, they have done so much. Some of them are talking to guys. They are even having men-only, discussions to see how they can pull this forward. The commitment is important. I think it's total commitment. And I'm happy that we're also doing a lot of things in terms of intergenerational, convergence, to discuss the issues that they are faring. We're looking at how connectivity, a lot of people can connect the bridges to see how we not only punish the perpetrators, but handle those who have gone through the trend, those who have the victims, these people who have gone through that, we need to be able to cater for them. And it's, I think, but I'm really happy about the women activists that have really raised their voices, and a lot of work that you are doing. Moji, you are doing a lot of work. You have raised your voices in many, many events and many occasions, and I'm happy that you are using this platform to give voices to the women. And I hope that we should be able to work together. We need to work more. Myself and yourself went to Beijing. And so what stage are we leaving behind? I'm also happy about the reactions of the Nigerian government, to the issues of violence against women and girls. And the laws that are coming up, so much is being said, so much is being done. And so I want to call on all women and girls, wherever they are, to build those bridges, to unite and to form clubs and support themselves where they can. And also this should be across bridges, intergenerational, and see where you are, look around and see who is the next sister, who is the next girl, who is the girl around me, and let's work together.
Thank you very much for bringing in, that profound call on all of us, call to action. That's what we have been able to, the perspective in which we have all spoken today. This conversation must continue. We hope that we can bring it back again, but our time is far gone. Amina Duraye, my doctor, thank you ever so much for sparing your time. And of course, Chinelu, that work must continue. Ene, I wouldn't have asked any other thing from you, but most importantly, I think what we have been able to do today is build a bridge of convergence. We all must come together. It's a collective work. It is not just for government. It is also for you. Speak out when you see something unusual happening. But most importantly, parents should watch out. Parents, I think we are not building that bridge of ensuring that we know what's happening to our children. We need to do that. We would be back again same time next week. And we hope that we can continue with this conversation and hope that we'll try to bring victims. And I'm sure it will send you to tears. But I do hope that it will be tears of hope that we can together stop gender-based violence. Well, have a wonderful day. This is all we can do today on Bridges. We'll be back again same time next week. Thank you, Ene. Thank you, Amina. Chinelu, thank you. And have a wonderful week. Thanks for watching.